sound and picture rolling right now.
I'm rolling.
Okay. Mike the Birdman, Slate 1.
Just anything.
Did you hear it?
Yep.
Okay, that worked.
Ready to go?
Yeah.
Wait, did we tell him where to look when he talks?
Just look at us, either of us.
Okay.
It doesn't really matter.
Okay. Well. I'm
Steve.
Nanette Sosa.
Steve Irwin.
Tell me about Steve.
Well, I'm an old fella, and we lived right here on, let's see, I don't guess I need to talk about where we live, but we lived in this house since about 77. I think we're the oldest ones in the neighborhood. Every tree in this yard I planted. And you can tell how long we lived here by that. I'm a veteran of the U.S. Air Force, 62 to 66. And I went to work at the Fayetteville Post Office in 1970. 36 years later, I retired. And I've been retired for 10 years now.
So over those years, you got to see your trees grow.
Right.
Daddy, can you take your glasses off? There's like a flare on them.
You start again?
No, it's fine for that. We can if you want, but I just think like there's a little bit too much lighting on those, so it's like hard to see his face.
Is that better?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
No one will recognize me.
Those big old blue eyes.
Yeah.
So you plant the trees, you keep working, and now these trees are pretty big, and when you think trees, you think birds. Is that something you like, birds?
Well, it's one of my hobbies. It's kind of dwindled lately because I'm interested in other things, and when you study birds, you can go in it all your life and you might know 99%, but I'm happy to stop at about 70 to 80. I know all the big things. The little things, I'll let the experts dwindle on those. Yes, I like birds. It's used to you'd have an exotic bird or two. Like the most exotic thing I've had was a summer tanager. That it was a juvenile, so it was the color of the female, yeah, kind of olive yellowish green kind of color. Anyway, it started showing up at my feeder. What in the world is this? And I finally figured it out. It was a summer tanager, a juvenile, that hadn't really developed the feathers yet. And it stayed with us all winter and left at tax time, April 15th. And but by that time it had started developing red feathers on its breast, which determined that it would be a male. And but that was the last I saw of it, and it probably died over the summer because it didn't come back in the fall to spend another winter with me.
How do you care for it?
Well, I just fed it, just have a bird feeder full of sunflower seed mostly, but they enjoyed, or it almost exclusively ate on my suet container. I had to go to Walmart and get peanut flavored suet, and that's what I think had really attracted them, because that's the only thing I ever saw them eat. They would maybe eat a sunflower seed every now and then, but anyway, it was a neat experience, and found out later that they also enjoy eating bees, and there's a bee tree right over there. It's been there for 10, 20 years. It's still there. If you want to see a bee tree, I'll be glad to show you. And last year, a fellow lives down the street on 2 blocks over. He had one come into his feeder, and he's a beekeeper. Oh, that was interesting. And it used to be real interesting. There was a, golly, what in the world was it? Anyway, see, I can't remember names. There was a pair of birds that would come in. Sometimes it'd be as high as 7 pairs, and they would just come. They were migrating south, and they would stop by. So, and one year they lasted 2 weeks and almost ate me out of house and home. But it was beautiful. The male would take off. He had red and white wing, or not red and white, black and white wings, and he had the red colors on him. And a real pretty bird. I really enjoyed seeing him, and I kept a record of them. And I would see those things within 2 or 3 days every year, you know, the same date in April.
Tax time, no doubt. Your dependents.
No, I wasn't thinking about taxes then. Yeah, it was tax time, yes. It's early April, and then it'd get going south, I guess. But I stopped feeding a couple of years ago, so I haven't seen them since then. Another interesting thing, I think, is I was over at Ponca at the Low-Water Bridge. I don't know if you're familiar with the Low-Water Bridge at Ponca. And there was a crow over there with black and white feathers in its wings. It was real weird to see a flock of crows flying by with one of them flapping white and black wings. And I never have got an explanation of that.
So with the birds, there come accessories. How do you decide on bird baths, bird feeders? What piques your interest there?
Well, the one I have over here seems to be the most durable. If you're not careful, you'll get one that'll it'll just destroy itself in a couple of years. But I've seen those around. They've been around for quite some time. And I had to really shop around to get that big old cardinal on it.
Can you describe it?
It's a huge cardinal, as people see it say. So when people first see it, they think it's real. And
Oh, hey, Dad, can I stop you just for 1 second? When you're speaking about things, can you not use the pronoun and use like the specific object name? So like, for example, just then you said like, it's big and red. Can you say, my cardinal statue is big and red?
okay.
Also, at the beginning of your sentences, can you kind of phrase things to rephrase the question a little bit? Just
Oh,
so
rephrase the question. Okay.
Well, just like be like, I got my bird feeders because, or whatever, you know, just to have that for editing purposes.
Yeah.
You're doing fine so far and everything. I just if you can kind of keep that in mind, it would make it a lot easier for
Yeah.
us to
I'll
edit.
try to adjust to it.
Okay.
But,
So you
But-
have an awesome looking cement bird feeder with the cardinal over there. And you have other bird feeders as well. That's not the only one.
well, I've taken them all. All the bird feeders are gone now. I'm kind of discouraging birds because they get in my garden and they peck holes in my tomatoes, and the squirrels kind of help too. So I'm trying to discourage them.
Well, let's shift from there about other hobbies that you have as well, other than bird watching. You just mentioned the garden.
Well, I used to be into geocaching. That's how I met Mike. But I'm out of that now. There's just no challenges anymore. The people wander around with phones that have oh goodness, what's the name of that thing? See, I can't remember
GPS?
anything. GPS in the phones, and they can't get close. They just get neighborhood, and I don't know what they're looking for. But anyway, that was one of my pursuits. I'm a flint knapper. I make artifacts out of chert, just the same way as the Indians did, and probably our ancestors too. Let's see, I'm into that. I'm a baseball fan, and I collect baseball cards. I'm a collector. And let's see, what else? What else? Oh, I can't do that.
Do you think like your interest in birds has something to do with your fanship of the Cardinals?
I really don't think so. I was just interested in birds because, well, I just interested in learning things new. Like I was a letter carrier for 9 years, and I remember the day I found a dead cedar waxwing that had run into a window and knocked itself out. And I thought that was most fascinating. You know, you could see it up close. I thought, what the heck? I didn't know those things were around here. They won't come in to tend to feeders, though. I don't put up my feeder anymore because you only attract a fraction of the birds that are out there to a feeder. Like you get the cardinals, you get the chickadees, titmice, and wrens, and quite a bit of other species. I might even say a summer tanager. And but there's so many more birds that well, and the birds can do fine on their own without us feeding them. Basically, the only reason to put a feeder out for birds is to see them up close, and so I've gotten out of that right now.
Steve, you've talked about bird watching here at a beautiful home that you've had and the scenery here, but what bird watching adventures have you been out on?
Well, the Audubon Society, it's headed by Joe Neal, they have an outing each month. And if you're the slightest bit interested in birding, go. You'll need a pair of binoculars, about the only piece of equipment you'll need. You need to get a good pair. And you can get cameras with lenses this long, and boy, you can see a bird over there and you get him look like he's right there. Take a great picture of it. If you go on these outings, you'll see exotic, you'll learn a lot. Like I didn't realize, well I do now, that there are two different buzzards and there's two different crows around here. And there's, oh my goodness, there's just several species, just about every kind of bird there is. You wouldn't believe how many different sparrows there are, 15 or 20. And we only see just 2 or 3 around them. And in the neighborhoods, they're all out there in the country, living different, all the way up to the bottom of the top of trees. And the woodpeckers are something else. We have yellow-bellied sapsuckers that love this neighborhood. You can tell where they've been because there'll be a series of holes in a tree, like I think there's some over there where that sap's coming out. And the sky's the limit on what you can learn. And the Audubon Society, Joe Neal does a real good job. Mike goes along with Joe a lot too.
I was going to say it's not always an individual sport per se.
There are a lot of people that go all the time. They have a Christmas bird count sometime in December. It'll be coming up, where they will split out in groups and will take a different section of town or the county and record the birds they find. Like I went for several years to a team that went out around Lake Sequoia, and we saw, well, there was a buzzard roost out there that was interesting, where we had both species of buzzards. There's one of them that's got a red head and one of them's got a black head. And actually, I don't think I'm supposed to use the word buzzard anymore. They're vultures. You know, it's kind of like buffalo, bison, buzzard, vulture thing. But anyway, and you wouldn't believe the different amount of ducks, and well, you wouldn't believe the different amount of just critters that float on the water that look like ducks. Ducks, geese, you got some of them that, boy, you spook them, they go underwater and they may come up 100 yards over there. And you learn a lot if you go to the Audubon outings. Joe Neal's, that's his life, and so is Mike.
And you have a friend that you know, his name is Mike.
Yes.
And if you want to repeat that, your friend Mike.
Yes, my friend Mike, yes. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, so I won't say his last name. But I first met him, I was out at Lake Fayetteville, and he was perched on, I think, the $1 Million Bridge with his telescope. That was mistaken recently by people that thought he was carrying an assault weapon. It was in the paper. But the police came and they knew him, and they laughed about it. But he was looking at birds from the bridge, the $1 Million Bridge out of Lake Fayetteville, and I was interested, and he very kindly and nicely asked me if I wanted to look through his telescope seeing. And I could see the bird, I forget what it was, I think it was a green, oh gosh, my mind's gone. But anyway, he was very nice, and he just mentioned that if I was interested, that Audubon was having a meeting or an outing the next week at Lake Atalanta in Rogers. So I went up there, and I enjoyed what I saw and the people that was with us. And I went several outings after that, and Mike and I became friends, and we went on individual outings quite a bit.
Do you ever refer to him as maybe Mike the Birdman, or
that's how he, when he calls you, that's how he answers on the phone.
Can you rephrase that question? Can you say that again, just so they're...
When Mike calls you on the phone, he answers, "This is Mike the Birdman." Linda gets a kick out of him. Linda likes him very much. She bakes brownies for him, which he likes. And
And Linda is?
my wife. I'm sorry about that. Yes. Linda's my wife and John's mother. We haven't been on any outings in a while, but we have proposed going out to the sewer plant, the one at east end of town. There's one on the west end of town. Both of them are great bird sites. The one out west of town is on what's known as the Woolsey Prairie, and there's all kinds of birds out there. Waterfowl, because it's a wet area, as well as all the different sparrows that you want to. And they're both good places. But out at the sewage plant, I remember seeing a roadrunner out there, and there was warblers that spend the whole winter. There's quite a bit of them out there. There's lots of waterfowl. Oh, and the sewage, not the sewage plant, but the basin where the big basin where everything, whatever it does, you can actually go out there, take someone on a snipe hunt, and actually see snipe. Now, I better explain what a snipe hunt is. I was born and raised in the Hilltop community over in Harrison, near Harrison in Boone County, and we didn't have much activities, for the young people. But one of the activities when all the young kids would get together, and if someone new in the crowd that didn't know about snipe hunts, they were indoctrinated, and basically they were given a tow sack. A tow sack is a burlap bag. It's about, well, let's see, I don't know what you find in them anymore, but anyway, it was a burlap sack about this tall and about this wide. Anyway, the new person would be given a tow sack, and we'd be going on a snipe hunt. And what we're going to do, we're going to station this person at the bottom of a gully, and the rest of us is going to come along around the top, and we're going to run all the snipe down there, and this person is supposed to pick them up and put them in the bag. Well, the people that are supposed to be chasing them down the gully, they get in their vehicle and go back home and laugh about that poor suckers out there literally holding the bag. So that's what a snipe hunt is. So you can take people out to Lake Fayetteville or the sewage plant and actually see snipe. They can actually see snipe. They're, for a description of them, they are kind of a quail-like bird, but they've got a big old long beak about that long. I guess we're digging that deep in mud to get food in the sewage. But that was an interesting story.
You and Mike the Birdman, and you can say that.
Okay.
What about your adventures?
Well, Mike and I have, we went up to Johnson, I remember, and starting from the big spring that powers the Johnson Mill, we walked up to Prackwood Source before. All the people are nice. Most everyone knows Mike on his routes.
Mike the Birdman.
Mike the Birdman. Oh, and when I first met him, while he had his telescope on the bridge, well, just all kinds of people come by. Hi, Mike. Hi, Mike. Say, have you seen that blue heron down there on the shore, lake shore? And he'd probably say, yeah. But anyway, everyone knew him and knew what he was up to. Knows him. He's had to move. He used to make a trip into this neighborhood, but he's had to move, and he's too far away to walk, and it's not on a convenient bus route. So we don't see him all that much anymore. But Mike is a great guy. I remember we went out to Lake Fayetteville in the early spring, and
Can you start that question over? Sorry, there was like a big old rumble from that.
yes,
shot.
there was. Yes, there was. Well, I forgot.
You and Mike the Birdman after he hops off the bus, but instead you went somewhere. Maybe.
Do we know what that is?
It's a construction. It's a city. They're paving the street out there.
Do we think it's gonna continue for a
Well,
while?
I imagine yeah,
Hold on 1 second.
yeah. I'm sorry, guys. My memory just
No,
shot.
you're doing great. Yeah, that's like a very deep like bass tone, and you can hear it like really
Boy,
well.
I'd say you can. Yeah, just hold off a few minutes.
Part of the work, or is that music?
No, it's work.
Do we want to just cut camera for a minute and wait it out? All right.